Well, today is one of those days when it's cold outside, the wind's blowing, and you might as well make sauerkraut. When I was in Arizona, we brought some of our cabbages back. We gave different ones away, and in fact, we gave the big ones away. So I brought some of the smaller ones because I didn't want to waste them. And so I'm making sauerkraut today. Now here's some of the cabbages that I brought back. Not as large as my regular cabbages. And the small ones I'm actually going to do something else with. But we're going to cut up 4 of the large green ones. And the first thing that we have to do is take that core out of there. And they are hard as a rock, which is excellent. So I'm just going to divide it into 4 so that it's really easy to get the core out. Now, some people just throw that in their compost pile. You can chop it up and cook it, and you could add it to soups or casseroles or anything like that. And it would get soft. You would just have to boil it for a while. Anything that's damaged on the leaves, I'm going to take out. And then I'm just going to start slicing it so that all of those little slices will pull apart to make the sauerkraut. And it's really a fast thing. And so here's the first one. It's going to go into the bowl. And I'm actually going to take the 2 largest ones, and that should fill up that bowl. And I might throw a little purple one in there too. So I'm just going to start with the salt. For this whole bowl, I will put about a tablespoon and a half in this part of it. And each time that I add some cabbage to the bowl, I'll add a little bit more of that salt. And I'm using Himalayan salt. You can use sea salt, kosher salt. I like the salt that is large. So this is just a little bit of that core that I'm just going to chop up. I'm going to put it in a freezer bag, and next time I make soup, I can just add that in there so that I don't waste any of it. Because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just harder, and that's not what you want in your sauerkraut. So there's the last of that salt for this bowl, and I just try to disperse it. And then the main thing about when you're making sauerkraut, you just really got to work it. Now these are the little cabbages. So I have them in a pot, water with them, and I'm going to bring them to a boil, and then I'm just going to let them cook. And I am putting a little bit of Himalayan salt on there, put the lid on, and we'll have them for supper tonight. Now this is my crock that I'm going to use, but one of the other things I'm going to use is some turmeric and some ginger. If I had fresh ginger, I would use that. But I like this crock versus my other ones because when you put the lid on, you put water in there and it really seals it. So I'm using ground ginger today because I don't have any fresh ginger. But if you were using fresh ginger, you would just slice it up. And this is just my masher that I can use in part of the process to get the juices out of the cabbage. So here I'm just putting it in. You can see that I added a little bit of that purple cabbage in there too. I don't want a lot of purple cabbage in there. 1, it changes the color a lot. And 2, I want the turmeric to be the most flavor in there. So you can easily pound, and when you do it, you twist it a little bit. It's breaking those cell walls on the cabbage so that it releases the juices. And that's the reason for the salt too, besides the salt being a preservative in the fermenting process and for it to last a long time. And usually when I'm making sauerkraut, it's going to sit on the counter for at least 10 days to 14 days while it's fermenting. And then I let it ferment in the refrigerator for another probably 3 weeks before we ever use it. And I like to use my hands too because you can just really mash those pieces of cabbage. And this is the turmeric coming in. I'm actually going to put 2 tablespoons, but I'm going to blend it up a little bit and then put the other tablespoon in. Here comes the ginger. It's about a half a tablespoon. That really depends on how much ginger you want in there, because I've made sauerkraut a lot of different ways. Now this is some fermented vegetables that I did last year that's been in the refrigerator. I'm just going to pour some of that juice in there. It'll just help it to activate and really start moving the process around along of the fermentation. And see, you can see those juices. And it's just a combination of using that pounder and using your hands. You can use your hands the whole time. And you just have to be a little patient. You got to work the cabbage and the juice will come out. Now I have a couple weights that go in to this crock. And so I'm just going to lay those in there, and then I'm going to mash it down so those juices rise up again, because that's really what I want. And then I'll put the lid on. Now, I need to wipe that out because there's little pieces of cabbage from when I was working it. And then I'll put the lid on there. The secret of this crock is that after you put the lid on, you're going to pour water into that little trough all the way around where you put that lid, and it just seals it up so air doesn't come in. You can watch, air bubbles will bubble out as it's fermenting, and I just have to check it every few days to make sure that there's still water. I won't open it up for about 10 to 14 days, and it's just going to sit on my counter, and it's going to make great sauerkraut. Well, when your garden season starts to come to a close and those cabbages are big and bright and beautiful, don't forget to make some sauerkraut. It's one of those things that you could eat every single day. And it's good for you. And there's about 1 million different ways to make sauerkraut. And I have made them lots of different ways. This time, turmeric and ginger. But a lot of times I do carrots and apples. So I hope you enjoy sauerkraut like Joe and I do, cold or hot. This is Sandi at Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona, and I will see you next time.